Hello, hello everyone. You're watching CG Arena. This is the first international YouTube channel about computer graphics specialists. And I am its host, Anastasia Voodoo. Today we're going to interview Finnian MacManus, concept artist and the founder of Terraform Studios. Today we will find out how it all began. Finnian founded Terraform Studios in the beginning of 2020 when COVID stuff began. He did it with his highly experienced industry colleagues and friends. With his experience in VFX, films and games, he contributed to many games such as Avatar 2nd and 3rd, Thor 4, WandaVision, and Star Wars. Finnian's sense of design combines his love to architecture, science, history, and culture, and it helps him to create wonderful and believable concepts. Also, he regularly participates in international design workshops and festivals. And today, Finnian is going to share his story with us and to tell us how he is able to combine the role of the founder of the company, still create his magnificent pieces of art, and also have time for self-development. So let's ask Finnian. Let's go. All right, so thanks for doing it. Thanks for showing up.
I have a couple of questions before we start, if you don't mind.
Sure. Yeah.
So for the final videos, I've been watching some of the CG Arena videos. Is this going to be something where you show, the work I'm doing in the background, or is it something that is just like our faces, just chatting?
Well, I was thinking about this one more just to talk to you about things, but if we have any time for you to show something, that will be
Okay, I see. So I just wasn't sure, like the way you guys have done in the past. It looks like usually you're going through work or something like that.
Yeah, but usually the interviews take like 2 hours, 3 hours, and they can show stuff. Yeah,
I understand.
So here, if we have some time for showing something that you're doing, of course, it will be very interesting to see for sure.
Sure, then, yeah. We can just start with the interview then. That sounds good.
All right. Yeah. All right. So can you tell me, how did your journey into the world of computer graphics begin?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So I would say it began just about, 8 years ago or so, when I lived in Chicago and I was growing up. I was born in Chicago, Illinois. And back in those days, there weren't many online classes or anything to learn how to do digital art. So mainly I was just kind of trying to design my own world after school. I was in high school at the time. I would learn about different 3D programs like Cinema 4D or Eon View. And I had, been inspired by all these movies like Star Wars and Dune and Avatar when I was growing up. And even though I didn't know that concept art was a job, back then I just, I knew that I wanted to create imagery like that. So that's basically how I started. Is as a teenager, I would look online for any programs that I could use to build something up in my spare time, just as a kid. It wasn't really focused towards anywhere. I didn't know that I'd be doing this for a job, but it was just something that I could, spend some of my time after, going to classes on. And that's usually what I would do, throughout the weekend, even during school if I had time. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's a fun hobby to do.
It was, at the time I would have loved to take art classes, and there's a lot of other stuff I did. I did a lot of sports and, I think I would have gone into mathematics or science otherwise, but it was just something that I didn't really know was a career path. But I still tried to spend as much time as I could doing it. It wasn't until I traveled to Los Angeles to visit some family here that I really realized that it could be, an actual career path. It could be something that I spend some time on and actually learn. I took a trip to LA and I went to take a program at USC for just a month or so, a digital art course. And the teacher there referred me to Art Center College of Design, which is, you know, a major design school out here. And when I went to Art Center, I saw the student work that they had produced, and it was, you know, incredible work. There was really no other school, you know, in the area that taught that sort of program. So I decided to devote all my time towards making a portfolio just to get into the school. And that's kind of how I started to learn about this industry.
I see. So you really wanted to get into the art center College of Design.
Yeah, there's really no other places at the time to study this. That was really the only option. Yeah.
And you got it?
Yeah, thankfully, you know, I worked super hard. I studied a lot of different techniques for digital art and drawing and painting. And back in those days, all the work I was doing was purely 3D. So there's no drawing, no painting. And I thankfully got in. And you know, the next couple of years were definitely the hardest I've ever worked. Just because I was trying to catch up with all these people who had known how to paint and draw. And I was kind of having to catch up to them. But I knew that one day I would, you know, get the skill I needed to really succeed in the industry. So I just, you know, kept studying, kept working, and I actually ended up dropping out of school just a year and a half in to start working. So, you know, in our industry, you don't need a degree, you know. So when I got my first job, it was for Sony Santa Monica, and it was after many, many years of, you know, study and practice, but I was able to start contributing to God of War, which is the first title I worked on.
So you said that you worked in Sony. That was your first order?
Yes, it was my first job was at Sony. You know, I worked at God of War for a year. It was a really fantastic time. I learned a lot on the team there. And then I went to Industrial Light and Magic in San Francisco after a year at God of War to start working in the film industry. And that kind of put me on a path to start working, you know, as a film designer around LA. So I was at ILM for a year as well, working with fantastic artists, you know, like Ryan Church and Christian Alsman. I mean, there's tons of people there. Yannick Dussault and, you know, Luis Carrasco, who's, you know, works at my own studio now, Terraform Studios. And I met a lot of amazing artists there, and they all kind of helped push me to become a better designer. Yeah, it was really fantastic. It was after that I then moved back to LA to really start working you know, with directors and production designers just around the area here, which is now where I live. Yeah.
Cool. And what was your first order? First that, for example, that you said you have your own company now, but before it wasn't like that, right? But what was the first thing you actually did and you're proud of?
Yeah, you know, the first, do you mean the first movie that I was proud of? Or, you know, the first movie that I really loved to work on was Rogue One, Star Wars Rogue One. And it was a really fantastic movie. You know, it was great to design for it. We got to build tons of you know, models to simulate explosions and design a ton of spaceships. And as a kid growing up, it was just really great to be able to finally, you know, realize my dream to work on that stuff. But, you know, for my studio, which I just started a year ago, while I can't talk about the original films that we had worked on at the time, I was really proud of just being able to work with all my friends, essentially. You know, we gathered a team of incredible designers that all had, you know, film and game experience. And we just essentially, there was just an opportunity to completely take over the design for a film that won't be coming out for a while longer. And that's kind of how it all started. You know, it was a great opportunity to get all my friends together that all had the right experience levels. And I just thought, you know, it was during the pandemic and during lockdown, you know, I just thought that it would be a really great opportunity to start something with all my colleagues and, you know, people that I trusted to do a really great job, and to start building something that would be longer than just working as a freelancer on just a couple shows. Because prior to that, you know, working as a freelancer, you kind of do 4 months to 8 months of work on a film or a TV show. And then after that, when the show is done, you don't really feel like the sense that, you're contributing to a legacy or something that's larger than that. And I feel like with a design studio that, I could really kind of mold and shape how we're going to be thinking about designing and contributing to these franchises. I felt like I could have, a larger impact, but also create something that would be longer lasting and something that I could keep building up, rather than something where I would just do, one job here and one job there. Because in the end, I wanted to do something that would create a foundation for something larger in the future, and maybe even be able to launch our own IPs and our own projects from the studio itself. And that was kind of the way of starting it out, was, making sure that we had a really good foothold in the film industry around LA.
That's awesome. So you got the idea to create the studio during the lockdown?
Yeah, it was during the lockdown. Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
Which was crazy, yeah.
And how many years before that did you freelance?
So before that, I was freelancing for probably, I would say like 3 years of freelancing. Yeah, so for a while. But the thing about the film industry here is that, you jump around a lot. So even though, it's only 3 years, but maybe it was 6 or 7 different films. So you'd be moving around a lot of different people. And you can really you can get to know a lot of people in the industry very quickly, because it actually is very small here. Like, everybody knows each other, even though it's a huge city. Oftentimes all the production designers will know each other, and everybody ends up working together multiple times. So it was after those 3 years I said, okay, I want to do something a bit more. I want to step it up and try to build something greater. And, during the pandemic, even though it affected the film industry in some ways, all the films that were in very early pre-production still continued on, because they didn't have to shoot any footage with any actors or any people. They could just start, at the design phase, essentially. So you had a lot of films that needed design work. Thankfully, it was just a good time, to start something.
Yeah, I see. So that's why now you can't talk about the first project you did with the studio, because it's not out yet, right?
None of the projects. It's unfortunate, because though that's the thing. It's like 2-3 years usually after we work on something it gets released.
Oh, what?
So yeah.
Oh my
God. Yeah, I mean, there's still many films I worked on 4 years ago that aren't coming out. Like Avatar is not going to be out for another year and a half, I believe.
One more Avatar?
Well, Avatar 2. Let me see.
Avatar 2. Okay, that's.
Yeah, it's going to be December next year. So that's a movie that I worked on almost 2-3 years ago, but it's still going to be a while. So in the film industry, there's a long amount of time that you have to wait before things actually get released and you can talk about it.
Yeah, I see that. Interesting. So, and about the studio again, how many people do you have working for you? And is this the people that you mostly meet just in LA while working, jumping around, as you said?
Yes. So right now we have 14 employees, and we have 14, designers that are working for us. And in the middle of that, there's art directors, there's storyboard artists, there's character and environment designers, and they're contributing to various different projects. So they're people. I would say most of them are people I met, throughout the past few years of working in the industry, and friends of mine that just are amazing designers and have a lot of experience. But there's a few people as well that, I would just contact online, or one of my art directors would find and then message me about them, who are doing incredible work. And then, if we have a meeting with them and they're doing, exactly what we need for, say, a certain film or a certain game, then we'll bring them into the studio as well and, sync them up with the teams and everything. Yeah.
I see. That's pretty cool. Yeah. And what requirements should people meet to work with you?
So that's a tough one because, we're still a small studio, like 14 people. We're very focused on creating high quality design. And the one thing that I want to be careful as a business owner is that you don't expand too fast so that you can still keep a good check on all the quality and the systems of everything that you're doing. So right now we're not hiring new people, or we would be hiring very slowly throughout the year. And I would say most of the designers at the studio would need to have a lot of experience. We don't take interns so much. One day I hope we're able to. But right now it's mainly artists who have shipped multiple titles. So people who have already worked in film and games and are looking for something different than the usual, switching around between projects, and are looking for a team of artists to design with. One of the things I wanted to replicate when I started the studio was the feeling that you're surrounded by incredible designers that are constantly inspiring each other. And that is like a feeling that, if you're on a film, it only lasts for so long because then the film's done and you have to disperse. But if you're with the studio with other creatives, they can inspire each other. They can share knowledge with each other, and you can all grow while working on fantastic things. So most of the people that I am trying, to find for the studio are people who are already experienced, that already have a lot of titles under their belt, essentially.
I see. And how do you guys usually get inspiration? Do you do a brainstorm sessions or something like that?
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into it. We have, a researcher at our studio who does a lot of reference gathering. But in terms of overall what I and the other artists get inspired by, it really could be anything. I mean, there's times that, say, like an insect pattern would inspire architecture, or times that a sky design could inspire a city layout. It's things like that where I find that if you take a reference and you incorporate it in an unorthodox way, in a way that people aren't really expecting, you tend to get a more creative result from it. So, at my studio, I would say that people normally get inspired by everything from, characters' costumes to different cultures to different pieces of architecture. I mean, in entertainment design, especially for a lot of the films and games we work on, you really have to be able to design everything. So it's everything from, you could be designing characters, like the main characters in a film, to the city they live in, to even the vehicles that they drive and how they get around the city. So with that being said, the inspiration is really broad. It comes from every section of life and every section of what's around us. So we just try to keep our eyes open and to make sure that, every day I'm looking for new ideas and trying to find new things that, either I'm saving for a personal project in the future or something that I can use to inspire maybe one of the projects that my studio is on.
I see. And so I see that everybody has their job, everybody has their small part in it. And how does the workflow go in the studio?
Yes, so it really depends on the project, because some projects will be faster paced and others will have a slower pace. I supervise every project in some form. So when I say I'm a creative director, it means that, I'm not only handling the art direction for the projects, but also kind of an overall quality check on all the artwork that we send out, the overall, inspiration. And I try to have a hand in every design that our studio sends out. So, we have, say we're on a film, one of the films that we're doing, we would either be working with the production designer or director to provide, references and an initial idea for a brief or a part of the script that we're trying to visualize. And whatever artists are on the team that are best at that task, they would start working towards it hand in hand with one of our art directors who supervises, the overall vision for that individual project. There are some projects where I'm more closely involved and others where, one of the art directors manages that whole team and that whole project. So that's why I say, sometimes I am doing paint overs for every artist on the team. And then sometimes I'm not supervising as much, and one of our other art directors is handling that responsibility.
I see. So you can have another person supervising it instead of you.
Yes, as long as yeah. So I don't supervise every single project, but I always check in on everything that the studio is doing, and I make sure that any project that I'm not directly, painting on or supervising has someone that's extremely experienced that I can trust with that. Absolutely.
Yeah, right. That's pretty cool that you got that person.
There's a lot of them. There's a lot of them. Thankfully, there's a lot of great designers that
for sure.
have a lot of experience that I've worked with, and they also want to kind of contribute to this dream of having the studio that we can all share and grow together with, which is really fantastic.
Yeah, it's awesome. And so you have your team, but do you do any outsourcing of your work? Or
not so much. Everything, most people come to us for the full concept design production, or at least a large chunk of it on one of their IPs or productions. So generally speaking, we don't outsource too much. It might be something we do in the future, but most of our work, if not all of it, is focused on just creating really unique ideas and original design that's done by our own in-house designers. So, everybody on our team is very focused on creating something that is unique that people haven't seen before, and something that can, solve any of the problems that a script or a game presents to us.
Yeah, I noticed you create design for games. It's like, I just can't imagine how it is to create the whole world.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Right? It's really fun. Yeah, it's a very fun process. It's challenging for sure, but it's what we enjoy, because you really get to build something from scratch that can become, an incredible experience for someone, both within the game sphere and also sometimes in virtual reality and exhibitions as well. There's a lot of different things that technology is enabling us to try out these days because of that.
Yeah, for sure. So you are into all this designing stuff, but did you play games before? So is it coming from the gaming a little bit too? Yeah,
I absolutely used to play a lot of games. I would say I don't have as much time these days to play games, but I'm still, a lover of the game industry for sure. As I was growing up, I definitely did. I would say that film was probably the biggest inspiration behind my work growing up, and a lot of science fiction space opera movies. But just as well, the game industry is very important to me, and it also presents a completely different challenge, because designing for games, the things that you're creating are going to be inspected on a much closer level. Because someone is actually interacting with them, and you have a different opportunity to make it a narrative experience and a storytelling experience.
I see. And the question that I'm sure that a lot of people of our Russian viewers will be interested in: how was the Disney experience for you?
The Disney experience. Could you elaborate on that? What do you mean?
So you worked on The Lion King. And I just want to know more about how was it to work with Disney, and what work did you do too?
Yeah, it was fantastic. So on The Lion King, let's see, that was many years back when I was at ILM, which is owned by Disney, because they own Lucasfilm. And Lion King was fantastic. It was a project that I, love to work on just because I grew up with the movie, and it's always really relaxing and fun to paint just traditional landscapes. So, scenes with forests and jungles and everything. And in the end, I got to do a lot of keyframes for the project, which were, character moments, showing a moment from the original film just reimagined in terms of how it could look in a live action capacity. So overall, it was a really fantastic experience, because I got to learn a lot I got to play a lot with light and color. And that was it was a really good experience just to explore one of my childhood favorite films, and also learn something from the amazing designers at ILM and collaborate with that team to create something that was special.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I know that new unique developments were used in the creation of Lion King. Could you tell me what was that and how the pipeline was built?
I don't have much experience in the pipeline of that because that's a completely different department, but I believe they use virtual reality to film a lot of it. And, that's something that is becoming much more popular with a lot of movies here, is not just using VR, but using, Unreal Studio and using essentially a new type of stage, almost like an Unreal stage that is a type of motion capture, but also a way of projecting pre-visualization, like VFX, into a scene before you actually shoot the scene. So, they use it on The Mandalorian. They're using it for, many upcoming films in Los Angeles and in other studios around the world. But it's essentially a type of spherical or cylindrical room that has many different panels that are extremely high resolution panels. And what you do is you create the visual effects beforehand, and then you project it onto those panels. And the actors who stand within this room look like they're fully immersed in the environment. It looks like perfect. You can look it up. It's The Mandalorian, if you check the behind the scenes footage, that kind of explains that part of the industry and how that's developing, because it's definitely something that's developing.
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, when I saw that the new Lion King, I felt that it's very cool to see something that you already have seen as a kid, but then it's so different.
Yeah.
Because
maybe they didn't do some people could have different opinions on how good of a job they did. It maybe was not my favorite movie to watch, but it was definitely really fun to work on it and to design for it. Yeah.
I see. Yeah. All right. Let's move on then. Speaking about the secrets of success and probably reducing time of work too, because you have some people that can help you with supervising things. So do you have any own developments that you want to share with the audience?
Own developments. I'm not exactly sure how to respond. So do you mean like professional developments or design, or?
I mean the professional development.
Yeah, I mean, I guess throughout this last year, starting the studio and transitioning more into a business role as well as an artist, which was something that was new for me. It's definitely been a huge growing period, and it's something that it's definitely a very different way of life and a different way of communication with people, because when you're just an artist working on these productions, usually you're very immersed in how to sell one specific image. But when you're at a different level, when you're looking down upon the whole production and trying to find out how all the pieces fit together, it's a different type of problem solving. It's something where you're thinking about how the audience is going to interpret the entire product in the end, rather than the piece that you yourself were focusing on as an artist originally. So that's been one of the interesting things, is trying to figure out how to have a broader sense and a broader view of how someone will interpret a full film or a full game, and the visual development process for that. You have to, instead of looking at all the little pieces and the individual pieces of artwork, you have to not only look at that, but also look at how they all fit together within a much larger narrative and story, and how, what that actually tells to the audience. If it's going to be something that has, ups and downs and a climax, and something that is really inspiring and motivating, versus something that maybe will be interpreted differently. You always want to make sure that the audience is going to be engaged, and that you're presenting a product that is very unique and that people haven't seen before, but is also immersive. And, coming into that role was definitely something that I wanted to try out for a long time. I always wanted to be a business owner and to have like a larger role in a production. So it was definitely a learning experience, and it's something that I really enjoy and that I'm learning more about pretty much every day on the job, which is, as an artist, I always wanted to be learning something every day to make a development. And I think when you're running a business and when you have to interact with so many people and kind of prioritize your time, and the decisions you're making are affecting kind of a larger sense of the overall creative design of a project, you come up with completely different types of challenges and different challenges that are related more to the perception and overall quality rather than the individual pieces I was focusing on before. The other things I would say that I've really enjoyed about growing as a business owner is learning how to get the most out of my time throughout a day through delegation and through trusting other people in the studio and trusting other artists and even some of our social media manager who does a fantastic job. But it's something where you can really start to feel the pieces of a team coming together and everybody trying to push each other to achieve a better amount of success and a more complete design. So that's what I've really enjoyed about that part and what I've tried to learn throughout the year in managing that sort of thing.
Yeah. So that's how you get some time for self-development.
Yes, definitely. No, I definitely still take time for myself. I still, take weekends, and I think that even though I'm now more in a business role as well as doing art, I still try to keep up with the new tools in the industry and learning new programs and learning new methodologies and try to be as open-minded as I can, essentially, so that I'm not going to be missing, any opportunities. And I'm always at the forefront of new developments in, say, for technology, for what we're doing, or about artistic techniques that are being developed.
Yeah, sure. It's also developing so fast. Everything's just like tomorrow's going to be different.
Yeah, absolutely. It's crazy.
Yeah. So how do you see the market somehow in 10 years, for example?
Well, I mean, 10 years is a lot, a lot of time from now. But I would say that right now the market is booming. So there's been more work in the film and game industry than there ever has been before. There's been more jobs, more studios, more activity. And I would say that 3D and Unreal is playing a much larger hand in all the productions. So many of the projects that, say, a few years ago, maybe I'd be using less 3D on, or I'd be doing more painting and traditional design work. Nowadays, having that 3D model and having that mock-up is very, very important to the production. It saves a lot of time. It saves building and construction time when they have to build set. So everything is moving, I believe, more towards that, where if the concept artists and design teams are able to build the 3D model and deliver that and essentially I would essentially say that more roles are being compressed into the concept artist category. And you have to kind of keep developing and evolving with the way the industry is changing over time. Because there's new tools and there's new 3D software that makes it easier for films to be published, like Unreal. And I think it's the concept artist's role is to learn more about those tools so that they can help assist the production. So that's kind of a long response, but I think that what we'll see at least in 5 years from now is that our generation of designers and artists will be using a lot more of the 3D pipeline to fit more seamlessly into our production. And they're going to be having more of a direct impact on the visual look of something in the film.
All right. That sounds very, very interesting, very promising.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Great. I think this has been a really good time for the industry recently. I mean, even though we've had the pandemic and so many things have shut down, there is a large resurgence of entertainment because while everybody was, locked down, they have shows to watch, movies to watch. So you see a lot of growth in those sectors. And because of that, a lot more, smaller studios and larger studios getting into larger productions, which is really great. A lot more streaming services as well. So because of that, there's way more jobs, which is fantastic.
Yeah, of course. I noticed that a lot of people started playing games, but they were never into it. But now they are.
Yeah, definitely.
Thanks, COVID.
Yeah.
Industry is growing crazy. So, and it's great that you've been able to start a studio in this time when a lot of people were so upset about what's happening, but really cool when somebody can just work with what you have and get the best out of it.
Yeah, I'm not even sure I would have done it if we hadn't been under lockdown, because, usually for work, I'm either, traveling or on the move or going to a different set. And I noticed that when I was in the actual film industry, when I couldn't take a step back from it, I wasn't able to pursue more of an, any sort of entrepreneurial adventure where I wanted to, if I had an idea, there wasn't really time to realize it because you were constantly working. So I think the fact that COVID happened and that I had so much free time enabled me to take a step back and kind of reassess what I wanted to do and where I wanted to go as a professional. So, it was definitely a really strange year, but I'm glad that, something really great could come out of it for us at least.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. So you say that the market's evolving and stuff, but what is important now for people to become successful in this market that's growing so fast?
Yeah, I would say there's a few things. I think always checking with your community of peers to make sure that the technology that you're using is up to date and that you understand the requirements for each project. And the reason I say that is that as technology improves and gets better, films and games and IPs have started out to branch into these areas that are very, very specific. It's almost like hyper specialization where you'll have artists that are extremely good at one thing and a project that requires that amount of time and energy spent on it. And it's important to recognize in the industry what trends are happening and what projects require what skills. Because one of the things as, a creative director and as I'm hiring for these projects and trying to work with directors and production designers is that these directors are looking for people who are extremely talented at a narrow range of skills. So I think if I was coming into the industry now, I'd ask myself, where is the best place that I could fit my time? I would suggest people do not become a jack of all trades and learn too much at once, but I suggest they focus in on one skill and become extremely good at that. The other thing I would say is that recently it's definitely seemed like social media presence, or at least interaction online, has helped a lot with a lot of artists' careers that I know. And even though it's not something that I particularly enjoy, it's something that I do think is really beneficial to every artist's career, is to have a community online and to engage online and to show your work, because there's so many producers and production designers and just creative people that are constantly browsing, Instagram, Twitter, all these online applications that can notice your work, and then you can get involved in their productions through that. It's happened to my studio several times where, someone that is in the creative industry will reach out to us because they saw the studio's work on another website.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, definitely. So
wait, but not on social media, on the website.
It could be through ArtStation. ArtStation is really important, but also through Instagram and Twitter, I would say, are great ones to have.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see.
And so besides those two things, the specialization, being active online, I think it's really good to keep a very open mind as to all the new things that are happening in our industry. One of the good examples is NFTs and cryptocurrency and how that is becoming a new marketplace. And I think it's just good for people that to keep an open mind for when things like that happen, to be able to embrace changes because, like you said, things are changing so quickly in our industry that within the next 5 years, we'll likely see a lot of new technologies, including, maybe even artificial intelligence coming into our workflows. And I think that the most important thing is also to grow along with these changes and not to be held back by any of them.
Yeah, I noticed that. I mean, NFTs are crazy. I haven't been on social media for I did a detox of social media, and then I come in, and then everybody's talking about NFT.
Yeah, it was a big explosion very quickly. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you work with NFTs somehow? Are you into that?
I mean, I'm into it in the sense that I'm open to opportunities in that space, and I have made and sold NFTs, but I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that I brand myself an NFT artist. I'm definitely not like that. I'm a digital artist and designer first. And, if there is an opportunity for me in the NFT sphere, I would be happy supporting it or going along with it. But the other thing is that I just want to make sure that it wouldn't take over my life, because I know people who are happy to devote themselves to the creation of NFTs and have done fantastic in that sphere. But in the end of the day, my real passion is, working on these films and these games and doing, making creative solutions and really making stuff that'll be on the big screen. If I'm able to also produce my own work and my own IPs and, sell that through NFTs, I'm happy to do that as well. But I also want to be realistic about the expectations, because no one really knows what the future will be when it comes to all of that. So I'm sure it will settle down in some form, and I'm very supportive of it. But we'll just have to see where everything goes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you're not like a huge supporter and recommend everybody to get into NFTs.
Well, no, I'd recommend people, if it's something that's interesting to them, then definitely get into it. I just would say don't get stressed out about it, and don't let it come in so far into your life that it distracts you from other opportunities and distracts you from other goals in people's careers. Because the thing that's a bit different about it is that you're suddenly up on a board being compared to, all these other people for a monetary value. And it can be more stressful than just, say, pursuing a digital art career. It's a really different sort of feeling and a different sort of community. So that's the only thing I would say about it, is that I definitely support it. And if there's artists out there that want to get into the scene, 100% do it. I just want to make sure that people don't don't put too much emotional investment into it, is the only thing.
I see. Well, yeah, that's a great advice. So you started talking about how some big studios notice your work for social media, but what's that others need to do to get noticed by the big studios?
So I would say the best way to build a social media following, and specifically, I did not target, say, the big studios with my personal work, but I think being active and doing a lot, showing that you're doing a lot of painting, a lot of design work, and engaging with other people online is a great way to start towards that direction. For specifically, getting projects through social media, I would say that I wouldn't want to rely on that specifically. But I'm just saying that it's definitely a good avenue to have up your sleeve, because you never know what could happen. And these days, more and more opportunities are coming from social media. In my advice in regards to producing content for that is that I think people should look at the types of films and games that they want to work on, and then target, look at what's being produced for that. Look at, what artists are working on that and what is their work like? What's the type of style that they use, and what's the type of keyframe and design work they use, and try to tailor their portfolio to match that. You want to, I wouldn't say copy, but just be aware of the type of work and detail and refinement that goes into the concept art for one of those productions. And if you can hit that, with your own work, then that's when I would start posting it and really showing, to the world what you can do as a designer and artist, because eventually someone will take notice of it, and it'll help their career a lot.
Eventually, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it can take some time. I know. And one of the things for me that when I started social media, I mean, I don't have a ridiculous amount of followers or anything, but it helped to be consistent. Is posting a painting every day or painting every 2 days consistently tended to build a lot more of an audience. Yeah.
Yes, consistency is definitely a key to social media, I would say, especially if you're starting. So, and if a person, for example, doesn't want to have social media, how do they get the jobs? They send their
it's definitely still possible.
Yeah.
I would say, you could send your portfolio to studios. I would just say that it's a bit tougher to get jobs these days without that connection. Yeah, presence or connection. Yeah. I mean, I know people who are like that, which is great for them, but people have to also realize that maybe they might have to spend a bit more time doing outreach, sending emails, and rather than waiting for the jobs to come to them, they probably will have to apply to more positions and, try to engage on their own part more with individuals rather than the whole platform. Yeah. So that's the main thing I would say is that I really do think everybody should have a portfolio at this point stage. Like there's no reason not to. But I understand some people like really don't want to engage in social media, and it's totally okay. Just realize that it might be a little bit harder to make those connections if you go that route.
Yeah, very, very true. So can you additionally say something for the newcomers who just like really want to get into the industry, started learning, but like what is there that they should know?
Yeah, sure. I would say to not rush and to really spend time learning the basics and foundation of skills, even though it might seem online that everybody is posting these incredible, beautiful images all the time. It's important to have patience and to make sure that you don't go too fast and overlook certain abilities that you can develop. It's also important to learn soft skills, is what they call it, which is communication skills, being able to deal with clients and being able to really work together on a team. I think those are all important skills to have. Obviously, there's no way to show that without being in an interview, but I think the biggest thing that happens to a lot of people I see that are getting into the industry is that they focus so much on making beautiful images that they don't focus enough on actual design and problem solving of the actual work that needs to be done in a lot of these productions is the type of work that really involves a lot of thinking and functionality and I guess creative uniqueness, providing ideas that haven't been seen before. And I feel that a lot of the time, the work that is most appreciated by the larger base of artists online is not work that the productions actually require. It's work that is very artistically beautiful, but doesn't involve the type of design and the type of thinking that production designers, directors, producers, studio managers are looking for. They're not looking most of the time for incredibly beautiful images that don't have much thinking behind them, just a landscape or just, a plain character. What they're looking for is people to think outside of the box and really push on visuals that are truly unique as well. So that's one of the things I would say is that I see a lot of people falling into that trap of seeing these images online that they want to produce, but then they don't realize that that actually isn't the career that a lot of these artists have. It's just personal work, or it's just a study or something like that.
All right. So the actual career is like designing the whole thing, not just one image, right? It's thinking of a broader.
Sure. I mean, I guess one way of looking at it is there's one artist who just does a study of natural landscapes, and they're incredibly beautiful images. They're painterly. The lighting is amazing. But then there's another artist who designs a landscape that is totally unique from some other alien planet or something that is historical, like a historical fiction that is maybe a cityscape that was 200 years ago, and they've gone and researched all the individual elements. It's work like that I would say is more appreciated in the design world. Because it takes a lot of thinking and a lot of research, and generally it's the type of work that they need designers to do. There's some films, so there's just not many films that only focus on natural beauty and things from our daily life. You need generally concept artists to provide you with imagery that you can't think about yourself. So most films and games that take place in the real world that are just, everyday life around us, they're not going to actually require as much concept art as the productions that are completely invented from scratch. Yeah. So that's the main thing I would say. Yeah.
It's true. Interesting. I'm learning a lot of interesting things today.
Very glad to hear.
All right. So, and if you could show us some trick that can help people to develop their skill in desigin, maybe you could do it now. We've got 10 minutes. If you can show some trick for that.
That I wasn't quite prepared to physically demo today. I have a lot of tutorials available online that people can check out, and a lot of videos on YouTube that show my process. There's a lot of process videos I've uploaded on my YouTube channel that just show my design process in virtual reality. The main thing I would say for design, though, and this is just something I can tell people to practice, and you don't really need a demo of it, is that it's something called the principle of form language. It's a type of designing. It's a methodology and a practice that I have used a lot, pretty much every day when I'm designing for production. But it's something that I learned back in school when I was a student as well. And form language, essentially what it is you're choosing one object to be the language or the reference, and you're incorporating it into an image, whether it be a vehicle or an object, a piece of architecture or a character. And the way you incorporate it is by incorporating the idea and function and form of your first element. So instead of researching, say, battleships as a design language, what I would do to inject something that's unique and creative into that is to, say, inspire a battleship by something completely unrelated, like a tree or hair or a piece of anatomy, and see how you can incorporate something that is completely unrelated in something that is very different. And that's something that we use for a lot of different productions, for Star Wars and, for all sorts of Disney IPs. They'll very often have a form language object that then goes on to inspire the proportions and the design language of many other objects in the film. So what I'd recommend people do to really study that is to do, say, 10 to 20 drawings, if you can, of inspiring, one object out of another. One of the things that I did when I was studying that's still on my portfolio is I use strawberries as an inspiration for architecture. And I would just study that all for a week, and then I would use a completely different object. So then I would say, okay, I have an interesting water bottle that has an interesting shape. Let's use that to inspire vehicle designs. So it's that sort of thinking and knowledge that if you practice it a lot and really focus and pay attention to how you're designing every shape, that is what is going to help artists a lot, is thinking outside of how they would normally think about ideas in design.
Yeah, I think this works for a lot of creative work jobs, not only the computer design, for sure. All right, and I guess to finish it all up, let's ask you, what are you personally aiming for?
What am I aiming for? So this year, I just like to keep growing the studio. We have a lot of fantastic projects that I'm really, really excited about. Some of the largest productions, any of us have ever been a part of. So I'm really excited to keep developing those and hopefully share some of what they are, maybe a couple of years from now. It's still going to be a while till they come out. But this year, I I'm going to keep pushing my my own project, which has been in development for a while, which is Blue Valley, and keep creating more designs and architecture and different cultures and civilizations for it. And I'm going to be spending most of my year focusing on developing the different structures inside Terraform to expand it and to make it an even better experience for the artists and the clients we have, to make it feel more of a community within the studio. And hopefully later this year, when things open up, to travel and give some more workshops in design, if it's safe to later this year. Yeah.
I hope it's going to be safe very soon.
Yeah.
So you mentioned Blue Valley. What is that?
Yeah, so Blue Valley is a project I started officially when I was a student, 4 years ago, 5 years ago. And it's something that I've been developing, and I have a ton of content for in my spare time. And right now, I'm either going to be making it into a game or some sort of experience. What I'm trying to do before I take it to that completely is get a bit more of the story and narrative fleshed out, and really think about how all the characters interact with each other. So, but that's something that I'm going to be launching sometime in the future. It just still has some more work to be done on it before that.
Okay, well, that sounds really exciting.
Yeah, it's going to be great when it actually happens. Yeah.
Well, COVID doesn't stop you with that for sure.
No, definitely not. No, we're hard at work. We're developing a lot of stuff, and we're looking forward to a fantastic year. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks a lot. That was really informative, and thanks for answering all the questions.
Of course.
That was really.
Of course, I'm happy to. Thanks so much for having me, Anastasia. Really appreciate it. And I hope this will help someone out there that has questions about what we do.
I'm sure it will. So, yeah, thanks for taking this interview and being so nice to us.
Of course. Yeah, it was a great time.
I hope that your company grows, and I wish you the best luck with Blue Valley.
Thanks so much.
If it's a game, that'll be probably the game that I will download and play.
Oh, great. Okay, wonderful. Yeah, hopefully it'll be coming soon. Thanks.
All right, then. Have a nice day.
Thanks. You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.